Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome back to Pardon Me While I Elevate. This is episode 20, and I thought that for this episode, I would talk about something that I very much valued learning in my life, and to this day has been something that I cherished, even in the hard moments of learning this on my own in the world, and that is discipline. Discipline has been something that has given so much back to me and has over and over again shown me how worth it was to learn the hard lessons. And I just wanted to take some time to talk about it. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a story. So I think that growing up, my brother and I, we had sort of a unique childhood in a lot of ways. But one of them was that our parents made a deal with us when we got to around eighth grade where we were allowed to go do what we wanted to do, um, as long as we told them where we were and who we were with, and we kept our cell phones on. And, we could go. We were allowed to go. And we didn't really have we had no like rules. We had no like chores and these things we had to do. And, don't get me wrong, we had a ton of friends that did have those things, but we did not. And we were in a family where my dad sort of ran the house like we were like a team he managed almost rather than a family, which has its ups and downs. But anyway, we're going to stay focused on discipline. So we were able to, move about the cabin. We could go and do the things we wanted, and we could go here and there and all the things as long as we were honest with our parents. And this was the go forward until we got into any trouble. So if we got into any trouble, we had to renegotiate the terms and, make a new plan. But if we didn't get in any trouble, we could do what we wanted. So this kind of brings a kid to a lot of different junctures in life because we have to make our own choices and we have to find maturity on our own and we have to learn risk taking on our own. There's so many things that you have to learn on your own when you're out in the world and you're not sort of sitting at home saying like, oh, I could have handled that and my parents said no. And we had a lot of friends that their parents were really strict and they always had to lie to them, or we had to like sneak out, or just something, a little more dangerous, honestly, in a lot of ways. And not every kid is going to handle this type of freedom the way that my brother and I did. I think that we both handled it really well as kids, and we learned a lot, and we made a lot of mistakes. But I think that a lot of the times when you're growing up, you need that like fuck around and find out phase. You have to know what it feels like to make the mistakes firsthand. It can't always be like your parent being like, this is going to happen to you if you do that. And if you do this, this is going to, you have to do it and you have to feel it. And I think that my parents both really understood that, you know, for the years that you're still in your parents' house, that's the time that you make those mistakes and you really fuck up. And if you fuck up really badly, it's still kind of okay. So that was really, really influential for us. And I think that, you know, we learned how to make decisions really well, and we learned how to gauge ourselves and to be self-aware, because if we weren't, our freedoms would be taken away. And that was just like not something we were sort of willing to give up. And my mom tried to just give us a fun life. She had a similar situation as she gave to us when she was a kid. Like her mom and dad didn't micromanage, they didn't really get involved. It was just sort of like do your thing until you get in trouble. Um and when you're out in the world, you realize how much is on you. Your mom's not going to like be right beside you to like help you through a situation. Like sometimes you have to be the one really figuring this out, and that is really dope. And for a young kid to feel that level of independence and that level of like, I have to rely on myself. It gives you this trust that you build with yourself, and this beginning of self-love. And it's just a really good foundation. And for a kid that has grown up in a family where there's so many rules and there's so many things that they have to follow and do, in order to sort of get any freedoms, that kid is going to go into the world and like really want freedom. They're going to like get to college or move out, or the next step after, you turn 18 and you have more freedoms in the world. and they're going to just like go crazy. They're going to do all the things and make the mistakes when they're out of their parents' house, and there's a little less safety. I mean, you're still young and you can still do those things, but you still have like a little bit less safety as you did when you lived with your parents every single day in your house. And you don't always know how to gauge your choices and the risks you take and things like that because you were never allowed. Like someone was always making your choices for you and um, you know, telling you no before you could even try it. So the kids that sometimes have the hardest time learning discipline are the kids that were so disciplined as kids because they don't ever want to go back. They remember what it was like to feel like they lived in a military environment or they lived in a very controlled, like you're grounded environment where you couldn't make mistakes and you paid for them the second that you did make a mistake or whatever. And so you don't really want to go back to that. You just want freedom, like across the board. You don't want anyone bossing you around or controlling you anymore. And while I understand that, that makes sense, it's not going to help you as an adult because discipline is going to get you all the things that you want. And without discipline, everything is just going to be so much harder. So, my mom still to this day admits that she's not good at setting rules. She's not good at enforcing rules, like even with her dogs. She's just not that woman. She wants people to have the freedoms to do what they want. And she learned discipline out in the world on her own. And her kids also learned discipline out in the world on their own. And so, you know, I didn't crave this freedom so much when I got to college because I already had it. I always had it. It wasn't new. And that really set me up to just like stay on track. I was just learning more and doing more and exposing myself to more, but I wasn't like, where are the drugs and where's the alcohol? You know what I mean? Like it was just, it wasn't something that was really enticing and I never got to go near and I never got to be around. And now I need that. So this is going to make a lot of parents kind of shake in their boots because they're like, oh my God, like discipline from a young age is really good. And while setting boundaries and having some level of discipline in the house is very good, I will say that, you know, we had discipline in certain ways, right? But a lot of parents think that like more discipline than what I have just described is better for a kid. And it's sort of all about knowing your kid because there's no really one way to do this. Every kid is different. Every kid learns discipline differently, and every kid needs to be parented in the way that's going to work for them. It's not really like a right and wrong situation. You have to know, like, can your kid handle this type of freedom? Can your kid handle this type of maturity at this age? Or like, do they need a little bit more hand holding? So it's like this concept of like the same boiling water softens a potato and hardens an egg. Like you need to know what you're putting into the boiling water, and the boiling water just being like the world outside, right? So it's definitely not for everybody, but we have to be very, very careful that we don't encourage kids to hate discipline and to want nothing to do with it, or to crave it so much that we're doing things like going to the military to like get more, like you can't discipline yourself. It's important, you need it, but you can't give it to yourself. So you need somebody else to like dictate it onto you. Not good, not healthy for the mental. So, I think that, like I was saying before, some of the hardest kids and young adults to train into discipline are the ones that really are running from it. So we need to be very careful to just be sensitive to not overly policing our kids and not overly, controlling them, because they're going to grow up in a situation where they really run from that, and they need it for themselves. They need it to progress and to grow and to like get the things that they want in this world, because there are a lot of things that we have to do along the way to get places that suck like hard work and research and days, weeks, months of lows or losses before big wins come. And like without discipline, without mental discipline and rigorous structure that you enforce for yourself, you are not going to get the things that you want in the ways that you want them when you want them, right? So discipline is very much the path for all of us to get the things that we want and to just stay the course. Um, you know, in order to become your own leader and your own boss and instill discipline within yourself, you need to implement a few things. And you practice these things over and over again until they become like second nature to you. And I'll just name a couple of them because these are the things that I've been thinking about, that when I hit college and when I, even graduating college and figuring out what was next for me, like these were the things that we're not always happy to think about, but really, really changed the game for me and really, really, you know, opened my eyes to just how important these things are. Because, as a kid, you could say like, I don't want to play saxophone anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. My dad would be like, if you don't want to do it anymore, you need to put a proposal together to tell me why I should let you quit. You're not going to just quit. Oh, I don't want to play soccer anymore. I hate soccer. I suck at it. Okay, put a proposal together. You want an iPhone? Put a proposal together. Like there was never like oh, you can just quit. Oh, you don't like it anymore? Oh, it's on a whim. Okay, just quit. There were like very, very few things that we would bring to my mom and she would maybe let us quit. But across the board, there had to be a good argument, a feasible argument for us to stop or start anything that we really wanted to do. So, managing your own habits and your mindset, to fully own your choices. I think that a lot of the times we can own the choices that we make that make us succeed, but it's really hard for us to own the choices that we make that might end in a loss. And I've talked about this a bunch throughout the more recent episodes, but it's like just be brave enough to like back that. Like, yeah, you made the wrong choice and that's okay. Don't be egotistical and live in a space where like you're not allowed to mess up or you're not allowed to like make a choice that's not the right one. You have to be able to do that and you have to be able to be like, yeah, I did that and I learned from it. And, like stand beside that. Um, Own the fact that your successes and your failures are based on your ability to make choices. You are sharpening your ability to make a choice every single day. You are sharpening your gaze, you're sharpening you know, your predictions for outcomes, all these things. Like we don't like I've been saying, we don't always have the information we want when we have to make a choice. Sometimes it's really just like you close your eyes and you pick something, and we learn from it. We keep going and progressing. But the point is that we're not always going to have all of the information, and you still have to be able to make choices, and you still have to reflect on those choices and get better at them every single day, so that down the line you're able to just make choices right off the way, like, yep, we're doing that, we're going that way, nope, this way. And it's not like it just hangs you up for like all this time, you don't know what to do, you don't know which way to go. You can just more easily move through it and it's not a hurdle. It's just part of the marathon. And setting clear time aside to think longer term than your daily tasks. So like every single day for me, I'm making this up, but you understand. Like I have to wake up and I have to set time aside to bake and I have to set time aside to go sell my cookies and I have to set time aside to make this YouTube episode, or I have to set time aside to talk to my clients within Nectar Brand Therapy, all of these things. These are daily tasks, right? I have to get through these things so that I can get to this point and this point, and it's usually all within a day, 2 days time. But what about the things like 3 months from now? What about the things 5 months from now? Now, you don't have to have a clear picture of exactly what that's going to look like, but you should be thinking about what is in those months to come. What is next for you? What do you want for yourself? And those things can change all the time. It's just a thought. It's this fluid stream of thought that continues for you to imagine what your life is going to be like in that time. What's next? How can I get there? Asking yourself really positive questions instead of like, oh, I wish I was there, and oh, I wish I was making more money. Instead of doing that, you say, how do I make this bigger? How do I expand my enterprise? How do I reach more people? And these types of things go into your stream of thought and they become this 3 month, 5 month, 7 month, stream in your head to get you to these places that you want to be. So that's really important to just always have your mind, focus on what you got to do today. But the second that's done, you get back into this concept of what's to come, right? And to never lose that thought. You can kind of step away from it for a second to come to your daily tasks, but you got to go back to it. You got to go back to it a good amount. And to set rigorous boundaries and due dates. When you had a job and you had a boss, you had rigorous deadlines and deliverables. And there was not very much flexibility. You had to get it done. And that was that. Sometimes you had to work until 10, 11 o'clock at night. Sometimes you had to come in at 8 instead of 9. You had to do what you had to do to get it done. Now, when you work for yourself, there should be a little more flexibility in some spaces, like to cater to your mental health and to not burn out and to not get yourself into a jam. But there should not be so much flexibility that you are completely giving up on these due dates and not meeting your deliverables and kind of slacking off. These promises that you make to yourself have to be as important as a promise that you make to like your favorite client or a new client. They have to be that important. And if you break a promise to yourself, you should feel that level of I didn't do my work the way that you would if you had a boss, if you had, a team waiting for your work. It should be the same exact thing. So those motivations that we feel to get our things done and get our work done on time, well, all of these things should translate into your own enterprise because you are the worker and the boss. So both of those roles owe each other things. And without the deliverables, without you coming through for yourself, nothing can work. You can't manage somebody that's not working, and you can't work for somebody that's not, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't go both ways. So the leader has to efficiently communicate to the worker, and the worker has to do the work efficiently that the boss needs. And you are both of those things. You just have to kind of see it that way, that you have two roles. Like you have to separate yourself from this visionary, this leader, and from being this worker. So you got to stay accountable in both of those roles to yourself. And that is discipline. Being accountable for the things that you need to give yourself in both of those roles. Okay. Yeah. So the only time that you should have this flexibility with yourself around those deadlines or those deliverables are times when you're really, really close to burnout, when you're just not in the right space to do this. It's not going to help anybody to just like push through in those moments when you're just really struggling and you don't know how you're going to do it and it's eating you alive type of feeling. In those moments, you have to know when to pull back and to give yourself a break, because otherwise it's all going to crash and burn. Exactly the episode that I talked about last week. Like exhaustion is very real, especially when you're two roles, the boss and the worker. And exhaustion can be on either role or it could be on both, right? So we just have to always be very, very aware of how we're feeling, what we need. There are a lot of times I can remember working in corporate where I said to myself, I either keep working right now and I have, maybe it was 9 o'clock at night. I either keep working right now and I have as many hours as I want to work, or I try and go to sleep, disconnect from this, and wake up the next morning and try to get myself back in it before this thing is due at noon or something. And those options were both bad, right? Because it was too much. But the continuing to work that night might have felt okay in the moment. Like, I'm already in it, I'm already doing the thing, let's just keep going. But you don't realize that after you're done, the effects of having to do that much concentrated work for that many hours can negatively impact you so much after the fact. So we have to always be very, very aware of what we need. Is this going to be an okay decision if I keep going? Am I going to burn out? Is this going to be something that I regret? Right? So it could be really easy in the moment to be like, oh, I'm gonna just keep going. But you don't realize that burnout is right there around that corner and you do not want to go there. Especially when it's just you, right? Because having one employee burn out in a company of hundreds is not a big deal. When you burn out and it's just you, it's a pretty big deal. And then the other thing is, blocking out your time. Assign specific hours to specific tasks, set time limits per day for the thing that you're going to do. So, like I was saying last episode, we're not working for 5 hours with no bathroom breaks and no distractions and no nothing. Like, it's just not realistic. So when you sit down to do a project, like giving yourself a time that you're going to stop and take a break is actually such a form of self-care and so much discipline, because you know that, like, for this amount of time, I have to be doing this, right? This is what I've allotted, and I'm going to keep this promise to myself that I'm going to do it for this period of time. But the second that timer goes off and you're supposed to take a break, you will feel so much relief, trust, faith in yourself for knowing that you got to give yourself a break. You didn't just say to yourself, you're going to sit down until it's done and you're going to do that shit, all of it right now. No, it's realistic to say to yourself, I'm only going to spend 3 hours on this today. And wherever I am after 3 hours is wherever I am after 3 hours. You're not going to just push through and do the thing and, like, forget that. And when that, like I said, when that timer goes off, you're going to be like, oh my God, I get to have a break. I get to stop for a second and recalibrate or move on to some other thing for the now. And it is truly such a wonderful feeling. It's kind of hard to explain because it doesn't really feel like it's that intense or that, I don't know, profound. But when you work on your own and you start to, sort of set these expectations for yourself, you never think to yourself like, oh, I get to take a break. Oh, I only have to work on this for a couple of hours and then I can just like chill out for the rest of the day. It's like you have to be on all the time. It's just very, very different. So when you can say to yourself, only this many hours, then we get to move on, or then we're going to move on to this other task for the day, that switch up can be really good for your mind. It can remind you that, we're not like working till we're dead, right? And then just like, sometimes when we just keep going, like I was saying, you can feel okay in the moment, but it's not gonna benefit you. It's gonna really lead you to a place you don't want to be. And so, yeah, those check-ins with yourself, that's discipline. Saying to yourself, I really do want to keep going. I really need to get this done, but I can't. I'm a one-man team. I need to give myself an hour off, or I need to give myself the rest of the day to think about this. Or you sit down in a chair and you're thinking about you're trying to come up with some idea and you're really hard on yourself and your inspiration is low and you just like aren't coming up with the thing that you want to come up with. You can't just sit there and force it to happen. It has to happen naturally. So maybe you say to yourself, it's 4 o'clock. I want to take my dogs on a walk. I'm going to do that and I'm going to get a little fresh air. I'm going to see what hits me. Then you're on your walk and you're walking along and all of a sudden, poof, into your head comes this fantastic idea that you would never hit you, didn't have before. It just flew into your head like a little butterfly. And all of a sudden you have the thing that you've been sitting there for hours trying to come up with. So again, our brains know the pressure that we put on them, and our brains know what, like, the inspiration kind of leaves the more that this pressure and this like monetization of what we're doing comes in. So if we lift all of that stuff off and we just take a break, in those break moments we can have these fantastic ideas come to our brain because there's no more pressure. It's light up there again. We're just chilling out, but we're kind of still working, right? There's this ability for inspiration to still find us. And so if we just stop doing that to ourselves and stop putting ourselves in a place where it's like, perform, 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 we can get there easier and better, So just keep that in mind within discipline, that discipline also means knowing when to stop. So the other thing for me that was really helpful, especially since I've been working from home in various jobs since COVID happened in 2020, putting together just a little section that's separate from your regular life for your work. So maybe people have an office that they rent. Maybe people have a studio. Maybe you just have a desk in your house. It doesn't have to be something so formal as renting a whole nother space. But if you think about this concept before COVID, I had an apartment and this was my living space. And the second I left my house to go get on that train, I was going into work mode, and my brain was understanding the difference between live mode and work mode. And that train ride to get to that work was preparing me, was giving me 45 minutes to get into the mind space of work. And by the time I got off that train, I was in my work mode. I was getting there, like I was ready to go. And then the same thing once I got off work, I got on the train and I was ready to just like digress off my day and get back into chill mode and to be able to go back into my living space. Now, when you work from home, it's not always, so straightforward that you have this connect or this disconnect between the two lives. So you want to give that to yourself in some capacity. So when you have like a desk that the second you sit down in that chair, you're clicking into work mode, it helps your brain to understand that like this is the time we've allotted to do this work. And we're going to sit in this chair and we know what this means when we sit in this chair and we're going to get to it. Now, the second that I get up out of that chair and go sit on the couch, I'm back into live mode. I'm back into chill, doing what I want to do, having more options for leisure. But the second I sit into that computer chair and I'm back to work, I'm really back to work. So setting aside a portion of your space to dedicate to work is a very important thing. And I think that a lot of us have learned that just like through the COVID time, because so many of us were forced to work from home, that we realized how important it is. Because otherwise, some of us, especially if you don't have dogs or something that like at this time they need to eat and then they need to go on a walk, if you don't have that, you could really just work all night and not even realize it. You're just like trying so hard to meet your deadlines and trying so hard to like go above and beyond and not be behind or whatever it was, that you just keep working. And that's just like really not good. We gotta separate those things so that we have a little bit more of a break. That is discipline. Yeah, and like I was saying before, just holding yourself to promises. If you make a promise to yourself and you break it, treat that as serious as you would doing this to your best friend or your best client or your best whatever, something that really matters to you. And sometimes friend isn't the best comparison because work and friendship should be very different, but it's just this concept of like how much it matters, how much it means, and the repercussions that could potentially come from a broken promise to somebody that you really don't want to break a promise with. And then, I know this is really fundamental, but I just had to say it, like, make sure you eat your meals, make sure you sleep 8 hours a night, make sure you do these fundamental things, drink your water, drink your electrolytes, do your stuff, like brush your teeth, wash your ass, do all the things, you have to be taking care of yourself through this whole process. I always say to people that no one is going to care about you as much as you care about you. And it's a choice to care about yourself. A lot of us care about others. A lot of us put others before ourselves. And when we do that, they are caring about themselves, you are caring about them, and no one's caring about you. So we have to care about ourselves or else we will be the one left in the dust. And people care about us, right? But it's not for long enough. It's not like extensive enough for it to be you thinking about you, right? So we have to always remember that our needs come before we can help anyone else with their needs. And one of the other things to remember within discipline is learn when to throw the towel in. And when I say that, I mean learn when to hire a freelance person to just do a little task for you. One and done, super fast. If it's taking you super long to understand how to do it, it's too complicated, it's hanging you up, it's taking you months to figure this out, just stop. Hire somebody. There are plenty of people that do the things that you need and would probably be glad to take on a little project that takes like a week, 2 weeks to do, hand it off to you and move on. And you will save all this time, all this effort, learning something that you literally hate or is too complicated or doesn't work for your brain or your learning style or whatever it is, and it's hanging you up. Learn when to say, I have tried my best to learn how to do this. I've tried my best to figure this out and I can't. So now I'm just going to hire somebody that does this like professionally. It's going to be a one and done thing and we're going to move right along. That helps you stay on track. That helps you feel like continue to feel capable. And it also shows you that you don't have to be the master of every little detail. Like there are always going to be things we don't know how to do. And instead of trying to avoid that and like stepping around that, just friggin' hire somebody. It's not a big deal, right? And everything starts with taking care of yourself, like I was saying. Giving yourself what you need, and like as a leader, giving yourself what you need, and as a worker, giving yourself what you need. Like get the work done that your boss asks for and needs from you, and manage your worker well. These things are a serious way to start loving yourself. And we've talked about this a bunch throughout these episodes, but like having this ability to make better choices and make better decisions, learning how to take risks or like digress off the risks or whatever it is that you need. Like you know yourself the best and you should know yourself the best. So sometimes when we outsource things, what do you think about this? Do you like this? What do you these things can be great, but we have to know how we feel about them before we ever ask anybody else how they feel, because if we don't, we will just absorb how they feel into our bodies as our own thoughts and beliefs, and we might not agree with them. But if we don't solidly know how we feel before we reach out to somebody else for their opinion about something, we might just agree with them. We want to fit in. We want to, not have like this difference of opinion, or we don't want to like back our things when someone else doesn't. All of that stuff has to go. You got to get rid of all of that, because you have to back all the things you do no matter who else does. Now, if something is horrible and horrendous, you're going to get the feedback you need from the world, okay? It's not always going to be the person that you go to, right? There are a lot of people that we go to for guidance and for help, and there can be some evil things behind those things, like jealousy, envy. They could lead you down a path that you shouldn't go, to try and sabotage you and sabotage your success and all these things. So discipline and knowing like how you feel, what you feel, which way you want to go before you ever reach out to somebody else for their input, very, very key. So yeah, if you want any other help with discipline or learning the fundamentals of discipline, I would be glad if you wanted to reach out to me for some help. And as always, if you want any help with your brand or your company, I would love to help you through Nectar Brand Therapy. And if there's any other questions that you have, or if there's any other prompts that you want me to talk about or anything like that, I would love to hear from you. And if not, until next week, I wish you the best, and I will see you next Tuesday.